Welcome to this episode of Podcast Laredo. My name is Antonio Alvarado. I am one of the co-hosts along with Fernando Montemayor. Fernando and I started doing this podcast last year, and the idea came to us because we were just touching base every month or so about various topics, and we realized that we had a lot of common interests. First of all, Fernando and I both grew up and were born in Laredo. We didn't become friends until after we graduated from college, and we both came back to Laredo, got married, raised our families, staked out our lives in Laredo. I unfortunately left Laredo quite some time ago to go work, and I still have family and friends. And so I've returned to Laredo and enjoy the conversations that I've had with Fernando. So the idea was that we would connect our common interests in a way that revolves around the people, the culture, the traditions of Laredo. To that extent, we said perhaps we need to be a little bit more focused. And we defined for ourselves a conversation that we could share with all of you in the audience about what we have learned from the past that helps us understand the present a little better, but not from a selfish standpoint, from the perspective that we would want to prepare the next generation of young Laredo for a brighter future, whether it be through education or career opportunities or just life lessons. And to that extent, we have invited different individuals to join us in this conversation. Today, we have a very special guest. Arcadio Archie Ramos represents the best of what Laredo has to offer. Not only is he a successful basketball coach, inspiring teacher, dedicated family individual, person of deep faith, but he is an example of what we wanted our podcast to be, which is full of narratives about life's ups and downs in a way that helps us become better individuals. So I am pleased and honored to welcome Archie Ramos, and I will ask my co-host, Fernando, to start the conversation. Fernando, are you ready?
I'm ready, Tony. And we are really excited to have Archie Ramos with us today. I can't wait to talk about your journey, Archie, not just as a basketball coach, but also the amazing mentorship you've given to so many kids over the years. Let's start from the beginning. What was it like growing up in Laredo? And can you tell us a bit about your family?
First of all, my grandparents were from Laredo, my mom's parents, and my dad's parents were from Mexico. And many a weekends going to visit our grandparents. My dad drove a tractor for a living. My mom was a housewife. I had 6 sisters and 1 brother, and never needed much because we had so much love and we had a very close-knit family. And to this day, met my wife in 7th grade at Lamar Middle School in the gym after a game. And she is originally from Charlotte, Texas, the outskirts of San Antonio. I have 2 children, Denise, the eldest, about 35, 36 now, and my son is 31 or 32. And they're all grown up, but we're also very close to them. And my son is married, has a little granddaughter. That's my Joy. She is 2 years and 5 months, and we have a boy on the way that should be here in about a month. So really looking forward to just spending time with his wife, Alira, and the baby, and just having another addition to the family. Growing up in Laredo, we grew up in the streets playing sports. I lived 3 houses from Bill Beatty, where we played basketball all the time. We would play baseball on the street, kick the can. We lived outside. We had all kinds of hide and go seek, and we would play football in somebody's backyard or out. We were always playing. So we had a lot of fun playing. Nothing was organized. It was just playgrounds and backyards and street playing sports. And that was pretty much how I grew up in Laredo, especially in my early years.
And tell us a little bit about what Laredo was like in those days. I take it that you were very family oriented, and I assume that you probably played some competitive sports as well, even in family events. Is that the case?
Oh, absolutely. Coming from a big family, we had, and my cousins and stuff, we had a lot of cousins in Mexico. We would go over there, play soccer, and we would come and play basketball over here and played a little bit of everything. I played competitive little league for senior league, played baseball my freshman year, and started playing basketball fifth grade at Ochoa Elementary, and then at Lamar, and then at Nixon for 4 years. And we were always out. There was a Baptist church 2 blocks from Nixon, 6 blocks from my house, that we lived out there playing basketball till midnight, 1, 2 in the morning. And while people were wanting to party, would go across, we were on the asphalt courts playing basketball all the time.
Yeah, that must have been pretty tough on you if you wanted to be dating anybody or going to dances or anything like that.
If there was no basketball games going on, yes, I had some friends that we went out with and stuff like that, but it was really basketball that I spent most of my time in. And if there was a game going on, I was going to be there. It's just something I did. It's just something that I love to do. And that's why I met my wife at a basketball court. So that's pretty in the gym. So it's just something that I love to do.
And little did she realize that she was going to spend a big part of her life on basketball courts, whether she liked it or not.
Yes, it's pretty ironic. And she was the one that probably when I was retiring was asked me more than, are you sure? Because she loves going to games. She traveled to all the games and she's, what am I going to do if I don't have a game to go to? Because that's been part of our lives for the last 40 years as far as me coaching.
You have become a role model of sorts for so many players over the years. But I need to ask you, who were your coaches or your role models that have influenced you and that you believe?
I started playing competitively basketball when I was in fifth grade at Ochoa. And there's Coach Barrera was my coach. And then it was Coach Woods coached us at Lamar. And there's some great memories there. We had a really good team. And then when I got to high school, I had Jim Harris, and he went to school in Notre Dame, came from Indiana, and he was a basketball mind. I love spending time with him. I was very fortunate to spend a lot of time with him, and he taught me a lot. I would help him because he was like the statistician in football games, and I would help him as a spotter. On our way to a game out of town, we talked basketball. On the way home, we talked basketball, and I was very blessed to have that. And after my sophomore year, he got cancer and moved to San Antonio for treatments. So Coach Gruen came in after that. In fact, Coach Harris died at the end of my junior year in Hondo. And remember Coach Gruen putting 7 of our players in the Suburban so that we can go to the service. And Coach Gruen was an amazing person. He became my mentor. He became my coach. I coached with him. I coached against him. He was my assistant even for 1 year. I was his assistant for 6 until I took over. So I was very fortunate to have a lot of great coaches in my life. But I would have to say that basketball was kind of in my blood because my dad played basketball in Mexico and he was part of a little state championship over there. And this was in the 30s. He was born in 1916. And I have a couple old pictures of him and old cars parked on the side, and they would play outdoor courts because there were not even any gyms. And he loved to be at every game, at every practice. He just loved basketball. And it was great to have him around for many years supporting me. I'll tell you what,
So
I never lost a game. It was always a referee's fault in my dad's eyes.
I love that. And tell us, when did you decide to become a coach? When was there a critical moment, or was this just something that you defaulted into? How
Uh,
did that come about?
So I officiated some boys club games after I graduated, stayed here for 2 years, and I went to UTSA. And I was going into accounting like my older brother. And Freddie Martinez, which is a real good friend of mine, was also an accountant. So I was doing great in my classes. And after my intermediate accounting courses in UTSA, my junior year, I do not want to do this the rest of my life. So I changed. And I've always loved being around sports. I was already working Cursillo retreat, so I love being around kids and around the boys club when I would work there. So just the combination of things and me just getting frustrated with the accounting that I decided to become a coach. It was after the first semester, my junior year, I came home. It was December. I went and told Coach Krugen that I was going to quit accounting and I was going into coaching. And he turned around and told his wife the day he graduates, I'm hiring him. After I left, he tells her that. And sure enough, that's what happened. I graduated on a Sunday, and on Monday, I was working for him, and Coach was his assistant for the next 6 years.
I knew that you had coached many championship teams. And when I specifically asked for the list of championships and trophies, you are so humble and you do not take enough credit for what you have done. So maybe Fernando can elicit some of those accolades that you richly deserve as he gets more into the game itself. Fernando?
Yeah, Archie, I know you're not one to talk about your own record, but I will. In your incredible 40 years of coaching, you had 730 wins, 17 by-district titles, 15 area championships, 8 trips to the Sweet 16, including 2 with Nixon and 6 with United, and a trip to the Elite Eight. That, my friend, is nothing short of outstanding, and congratulations. So there, I know you wouldn't have said it, so I said it for you. Can you share with us, Archie, what was your coaching philosophy?
Before I answer that, it's funny you read all of that because I went to adoration before this and I read something. Do we seek success from our exterior accomplishments or from inner goodness? And when I read that, it's what a day to God send me that thought that, yes, it's nice to hear those things. My success more than anything comes from the kids that I've coached and how successful they've become and the relationships we have built. But as far as my philosophy, discipline and fundamentals come to mind. Discipline, because I want kids to do the right thing on and off the court after they graduate, make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to get themselves ready. Fundamentals, because when you do things right, you can play against any level of competition. We have beaten number 1 teams in the state 2 or 3 times. We have beaten or competed against prep schools out of Maryland, out of Orlando, and some of the trips we took. And if we had to stand side by side, we would be an average of 5 to 6 inches shorter than all their players by position. And we would be slower than them and not jump as high. But because we really instill fundamentals, we're able to compete with teams and stay with them. So to me, those are the 2 big things. We've had different styles. I've played up tempo. I have played pounding it inside because we have some pretty good sized kids and we're going to work the ball to get the best shot possible. So we've coached a lot of different styles depending on the personnel I have. But no matter what style I used, it was always about fundamental.
How did you motivate your players, especially when things aren't going well on the court?
I think building a relationship with kids every day and making sure they know that you care for them and love them, they will run through a wall for you. So the motivation to me comes from every day, just working hard, letting them know that you care for them, appreciating their dedication. I think that helps them to be disciplined and do what's right. I think also that we instill great amount of work ethic, and for them to do stuff. We're at school at 6:30 in the morning and there was kids shooting. I would have 20, 25 first day of school waiting for me to start putting up shots at 6:30 in the morning. They would shoot for an hour, shower, have breakfast, go to class, come back the athletic period. After the athletic period, after school, they would lift weights. After weights, they would have open gym. And then still there would be kids, coach, can you keep the gym open for another 20 minutes so I could put up some more shots or play an extra game or two? So these kids sometimes outworked me because they wanted to be there. Once you get the program sold to the kids and, you care for them and love them, they will do whatever it takes to be successful.
But Archie, you have done that uncommonly well. You have taken what is something very basic and very common, and you put it in the pedestal of excellence where you don't accept excuses. And I recall in you sharing with us some stories about how you enforce that discipline and how your players have come to expect it. And I know this is probably not something that most athletes today would really want to hear, but tell us about your policy on cell phones on the bus.
So we have 3 hard cases, one for the freshman team, one for the JV varsity. Of all teams are traveling in that bus. Every kid has to put their phone in there before we get on. And that's around noon, 11:30-ish. And we head out to San Antonio or wherever we're playing, and we'll go through all 3 games. And at the end of our varsity game, which is about 9:00, is when we return their phones so that they can call home and let the parents know how they did. And then we pick the phone right back up. We go eat at our restaurant and then head home in 20 minutes before they get their phones back to call home for their parents to be there when they're getting picked up. You would think it would be a hassle, but the players get used to it. And the bus gets a little loud when you pick up phones because they're not just watching videos or having their iPod on. They're talking and communicating with one another. And you just see the bonding between players and kids because they're talking with one another. And it's just something that we've always done. I started coaching before there were cell phones, but as soon as there were cell phones, we started picking them up just so that we could create that team chemistry and caring for one another and togetherness.
That's outstanding. That's really great. And I don't know if there's just one answer, but what's the most valuable lesson you try to instill in your athletes, both on and off the court?
It goes back to chemistry and togetherness and caring for one another and looking out for one another and making sure that everybody's doing the right things. I think when you have a team that does that, the wins take care of themselves. I think was my son sent me a podcast and he says, listen to minute 39. And it's a coach that is now coaching at the college level that we coached against when he was at Wagner. And he says, they asked him a question, which is the toughest player you've ever played against or coached against? And there was 2 players or 2 coaches that they were interviewing. One starts mentioning this player and that one. And when they asked him, he says, it might not be the best player I've ever coached against because I really can't think of one, but I can tell you which is the best team I've ever played against. And it was the 2010 United Longhorns. And he says the chemistry they had, they would never quit. And he says, I had no answers. I would lose sleep coaching against that team. And he finishes by saying he had 2 NBA players on that team. One of them was Clarkson that played at Wagner and right now playing for Utah. He was 6th man of the year. And the other one was Roberson that played for OKC when they went to the finals when Durant was there. And he was their defensive specialist and 3-point shooter. He is about 6'9", 6'10". And he had 2 of those NBA players, and they had lost 1 game before they lose in the state tournament, state championship. And he says, while we were there, he says, I had no answers. I would just tell these 2 guys, you're going to have to beat them because there's no way that I can figure anything out. And it wasn't anything that I was doing. It was the chemistry and the togetherness of that team that they didn't care who took the credit. We had 3 tournaments. We had 3 different MVPs because we won all 3 tournaments. three different MVPs in our team on those three tournaments. We had all five get all tournament because it was just a great unit. So when you do that and you instill that team chemistry, that togetherness, that's when your team can go far and beyond. And if they do that in life, within their own families, at the place that they work, if they have a business, those families, those places of work will be successful.
We're going to be sharing some of the slides that fit the conversation that you've been having. Fernando and Archie, feel free to comment on these slides because I think they represent a little bit of the background of the narrative that you've just shared with us.
That's me coaching at the Border Olympics, and great tournament. Coach Solis does a great job of bringing a lot of good teams, and it's just fun to be a part of that tournament all the time. Laredo basketball is great. This is our 2023 district champion team. So it's also all the kids sitting down are seniors. We have a couple of managers there too with their senior teammates. This picture, this is an Owen at Nixon. That's Daniel Hermosillo, number 14, and he is a head soccer coach now at Alexander. He's the only soccer player who has ever played basketball. And we work with kids if they want to play other sports. Coach Krugen actually is blocked right behind me. That was the year that he was my assistant for 1 year. And the other player is Victor Garza. He's coached at the college level. Now he's a regional manager for a company that makes plasma, extremely successful. A great dad to two boys, and wonderful wife, and very proud of those two boys.
That's another question. What's one skill or area you think high school players often overlook or underestimate in their development?
I think that because of their fundamentals, we want them to be complete. And complete, they can shoot it, they can pass it with both hands, they can dribble it with both hands, they can defend, they can rebound, that they do everything. So I wouldn't say it's one skill, it's developing all aspects of the game, both right hand and left hand, especially because there's a lot of statistics that show that if you pass to your left side with your right hand, there's a big chance of a ball being tipped. It goes up like 70% that if I learn to pass with my left to the left side of the court. And a lot of people don't think of those little things, and they could add up to a lot of turnovers. So we try to develop those players completely. We want our postmen to be able to dribble and handle the ball. We want our guards to be able to catch the ball on a rebound and be able to finish. So we work all aspects of the game constantly.
You also mentioned something about on defense coming up like this, and all your players came out.
Yes. Yeah.
Tell us about that.
So we always tell our players that we're creatures of habit. If we go like this, I can go like that 10 times. The same thumb is on top every time. When I put on my pants, I put my left leg first and then my right. I brush my teeth. I start on my left side of my mouth. Everything's a habit. So our habits is that a good basketball player has his hands above the elbows. So the minute they run out of the dressing room, they have to run from the dressing room to the gym with their hands above their elbows. And when they're doing warm-up drills, they're running around with their hands there. And we're trying to develop habits constantly so that they become innate, and that's not something that, or instinctive, and it's not something that I'm having to tell them on during a timeout, because they're not going to do it if they don't do it every time. So we try to instill those habits by making little drills that are going to make them work on those habits consistently.
Do you think that's something that other coaches work on their teams?
Oh, there's a lot of great coaches.
One of the things that I wanted to do is to recap the coaching philosophy. We have a slide that I think might give us a little bit better view of what we mean by coaching philosophy. Oops, let me go real quick here. There we go.
Yeah, especially that last part, TABC clinics, every time. In fact, it starts tomorrow. But those TABC clinics in San Antonio, I've gone for 40 years. I would sit in the front row, take notes. I would not miss a talk. And you can always grow as a coach. I tell my players, I've been doing this for 40 years. I played for probably 7, 8 years. So for the last 50 years or so, I've been around basketball, and I still go to clinics and try to pick up something. Or I'll go watch teams practice. I've seen Kentucky practice. I've gone to Duke to watch them practice, seen North Carolina practice. I've gone to UT and watched them practice. I'm always trying to learn a little better way to teach something, whether it's terminology that we need to use or a particular drill or even an offensive set that will make our team a little bit better and give us that edge that will make us win more.
We are going to be taking a very short break, which will allow us to sequence into the second part of our conversation with Coach Archie Ramos on Podcast Laredo. And in the second part, we are going to be talking about more specifics about team dynamics and leadership and how Coach Ramos basically looks at the mental toughness necessary, not just to win games, but really to play the game of life. Fernando and I want to thank you, the audience, for being with us. And we want you to stay through to the end because we want your feedback and your comments, but we also want to know who you are. And so we will be providing a contact information for you to let us know how we can continue to improve Podcast Laredo. We will take a short break and we will return. This is Tony Alvarado, one of your co-hosts with Fernando Montemayor, the other co-host, and we've been talking to Coach Archie Ramos, and it's been a wonderful conversation. We took a little break, and we're now back with you. And our podcast is all about gaining insights into the historical and cultural vistas or perspectives, and hopefully we'll have some takeaways for future generations. In this case, if you are a basketball fanatic or a lover of Laredo sports, there are already a lot of takeaways from the earlier part of our conversation, and there will be more as we proceed. Coach, are we ready to continue our conversation?
Yes, Tony.
And we've been talking about student athletes and your coaching career, but I want to take it now to a more specific level, and that is the skills, the discipline, the mental toughness, if you will, that you need your players to develop and how you help them develop it so that not only are they successful or as successful as they could be that season, but for returning seasons. And then eventually, obviously, it transfers.
I think mental toughness, as far as basketball is concerned, is that our definition is more dealing with, as far as basketball, is doing your job. It's not so much, can I just shoot it? It's more of, can I defend when the guy's faster, stronger, better than me? And can I just keep grinding and working until I accomplish my skill at getting him under control defensively? I feel that many times, perfect example, I tell our players, in a scale of 1 to 10, if I shoot the ball, how many of you go hit the boards every single time? How many of you go rebound? And if you're doing it once or twice, you're not being very tough. You do it 8, 9, 10 times on every shot, I'm going to go get that rebound. And a lot of times when players get a little fatigued, they don't go attack the boards like they should. They don't have those hands above their elbows. They're not passing with their weak hand to the left. Fatigue will make you a coward quickly. So we try to instill a lot of conditioning, but we try to make sure that when we talk about toughness is about doing your job, no matter the situation, the team we're playing, how big they are, how fast they are, we got to do our job. And I have an opportunity to take a charge. Are you going to be man enough and sacrifice your body for your team? Or are you going to be that coward? No, I'm the pretty boy. I just want to shoot the three. We make practices extremely tough so that we bring those things out and make sure that the players are doing all those little things. There's a stat where Michael Jordan plays 44 minutes in a game. How long did he have the ball in his hands? It's 3 minutes out of the 44. And he's the best player on the court. But he's got to go rebound. He's got to defend. He's got to guard. He's got to pass the ball, on and on. You're having a cut. So there's a lot of things that we have to teach our kids, because you're going to have the ball maybe, if you're a good player, 2 minutes a game in a 32-minute game, maybe less, actually the ball on you. And some of them a lot less. So they got to be able to do many other things to be able to really contribute to the team.
And so, Coach, is your style when you're doing practice or in a game to shout at the player, to take a timeout, talk to them, substitute? What is your approach when you can see that the skill level of the player is not up to their full potential, or it's not what you practiced and what you've taught? What do you do? How do you react with that player?
It varies. You got to find what pushes the button for each player, because everybody's different. I might yell at Fernando and he shuts down. I yell at you and you turn it on. So as a coach, at one time when I first started, I was crazy and a lot of energy, very aggressive, and they just had to deal with me. So as I matured, there's more than one way to skin a cat. So I had to find ways to motivate players to do their job, and everybody's a little different. We do as a team sometimes, though, we have what we call emphasis of the day. And if an emphasis of the day is catch the ball with two hands, and somebody catches it, we want, we're going to go up and down once. And if somebody does it again, we're stopping it 10 seconds, up and back. If a bunch of players are catching the ball with one hand instead of two, there's a lot of running going on. So now they're putting peer pressure on each other, and they're yelling at each other, two hands, and boom, there's the two hands. So now the running is reduced. The skill is getting better and better until we clean it up. And that's how we get rid of some of these bad habits sometimes.
And that leads to the next logical question for me, which is, over the years, you probably have faced many challenges that the game of basketball and the players have presented to you. Where do you think are the greatest challenges that you've experienced, or what are they, if you can share those with us?
To me, the greatest challenge is you see a lot of professional basketball and college basketball, and it's just based on a lot of talent, a lot of the offenses they run and stuff. So the kids want to do the same thing. And we don't have that height or that speed sometimes, or that strength. So we have a system that we run. In fact, that's coach that I spoke a while ago about how our team really frustrated him. He gave me the best compliment ever. He says, it's harder to prepare for a United team than to play the Duncanvilles, the Westlakes, that are extremely talented teams. And the reason he says that is because our system is very team-oriented. We pass before we dribble. We have a lot of set offenses and motions that we run that makes it difficult for that team to guard. A lot of teams are now in a pick and roll, dribble, drive, pick and roll. And the more teams we play, that's what over and over, because that's what everybody does. And we do some of that, but within our own system that has to make teams really prepare something different when they're going to play us, because we're not just going to run that pick and roll over and over a lot of the other teams. It's difficult at times because kids have this new basketball and they're playing year round. Sometimes they'll play 80, 90 games in the summer and spring, fall before our season even starts. Our season is 30 to 35 games, 40 if you make it to the state championship game. So when they're out there playing with AAU coaches and parents coaching them and stuff. Then they come to me. It's an adjustment period, but we usually do a good job of, hey, this is what we do, and this is the way you're doing it, and we fix it right away. If not, we are going to bring some consequences, a little extra conditioning or a little tougher drills to make sure that we do things the way a team coached by Coach Ramos does.
Do you have a favorite motivational quote or saying that guides you in your coaching?
Oh, man. It's funny you say that because there's many times I say something and it's like my old coach used to say. And so I wouldn't say there's one that really stands out. I would say, to me, I say many times, we got to do things right. It's not how you run the drill. No, it's not the drill we're running. It's how you run the drill. And we got to run it right. I can have the best drill, but if you don't run it correctly and you're not running it fundamentally sound, it's a waste of time. So we're going to do things right, no matter the drill.
And aside from coaching, you taught in a regular classroom. A lot of people think coaches just coach
Yes.
and they just show up for a game and practice, but you have to have regular classes. So what did a typical day look like for you during basketball season?
I have taught biology, anatomy, and physiology, one semester AP Bio. I taught STAR classes, which is the exam you had to take to pass your science STAR to graduate, and the course biology classes. So it's been 40 years in the classroom. Right now I'm teaching math to fifth and sixth graders, which is totally different. But my regular day, I get to school when I was in high school at 6:30. I would have a class, teach a second period. I would usually be off first to prepare for the day. I have second period biology class or anatomy class, come to basketball class, go back to another anatomy class, come back to freshman basketball, and then the weights and the open gym. So the day would be pretty long. Average, easy 12 hours a day, minimum. I'd get there at 6:30 and the earliest leave about 6:30. Usually we're leaving during the season 8, 9 every day, and sometimes get home and watch a little bit more game video and try to prepare for our next team. One time I got sick and my cousin, as the doctor says, "Are you sleeping enough?" I said, "It's basketball season." "Are you stressed?" "It's basketball season." And that's just part of the job. But try to sleep in a little bit every now and then, or especially on weekends, try to get a little rest, take the vitamins, try to exercise a little bit just to release some of that stress because it's a blast. It's a blast. I have a lot of fun doing it. So to me, even though their hours are super long, I don't feel that they're that long. I enjoy what I do.
And you weren't just motivating your athletes, you also motivated your students in the regular classroom. You were telling us about that you like to share, what's the name of that book? Chicken Soup for the Soul.
Yes.
And can you want to share a little on that story?
Sure. I always like, especially when the kids are testing, if a kid fails, I have failed. So I make sure that I give everything in the classroom too. Sometimes I'm there at 6 a.m. setting up cats for anatomy so that they can identify and stuff. And my wife had breast cancer and she was getting her treatments in San Antonio. So I missed 17 days of school that year. And I had my 2 anatomy classes. My substitutes would tell me, they would leave messages on my desk. "If you need a sub, here's my card. Call me again. Your classes are awesome." Every sub left me messages. Love subbing for my class. And so I take out my ribbons and I told my students, I says, "I've gone through this chemo with my wife. I've missed 17 days. You all have been amazing. You did all your work when I wasn't here. Not one sub ever complained about you. I've never prayed so much in my life. I have to drive to San Antonio every week for treatments. She's gone through this surgery. She's going to go through a surgery in a couple of weeks." And I says, "So I just want to give each one of you a ribbon for making a huge impact on my life. Come up here, shake my hand, or just take the ribbon." So I put the ribbon on the first kid. He gives me a bear hug. Big 250-pound football player, doesn't let go. My whole class starts tearing up. I'm tearing up. We need to make sure that we let these kids know that we care for them, that we want them to succeed. just because I gave them a little ribbon that says who they are, were special, and how much they meant to me, those kids gave me so much more love than I could have imagined in that particular instance. And it just was a very special moment in that class. I've received many a letter from kids, girls and boys, of the impact I've had in them, and that just makes teaching worth it. It's a lot of fun. I enjoy trying to impact kids.
Coach, one of the things that Fernando and I talked about in preparation for today's conversation is how much of an impact you've had on your peers, on Fernando and myself, because your narrative is honest, it is transparent, but it also is about holding everyone accountable for their behavior, their performance. Fernando has another question on how you demonstrate this. Then we'll move into the mental toughness and your personal legacy, if that's okay, Fernando.
Yes,
Can
I'm
we
just
do
going to
that?
ask I'm just going to ask Archie to share one story that he'd also shared with us. For those that don't know, Archie has several sisters, but one of them is a nun, religious sister. Tell us what Sister Lupita tells you or told you.
So my sister's like Fernando says, a nun, and she always tells me that when I coach, I don't coach basketball. And every time we talk, she reminds me of this. And she says, you don't coach basketball, you coach kids. And he says, when you focus on kids, you love these kids. You just don't use kids for you to get wins, but you really care for them. Says you will be successful and the kid will be successful. So we always have to focus on that kid and not on the wins and the losses or anything else. Even though sometimes it's frustrating, I feel that success just comes from building those relationships. And my sister does a great job of always reminding me of that. And she'll send me videos and stuff of different things that always lead to, are you taking care of your players? Are you taking care of your students in that case too?
Coach, let's go through some more slides representing your remarkable journey.
Yes. So this is my daughter. She just got her master's this past December. She got it from Texas State. She works in San Antonio at a charter school and would drive to Texas State. Every now and then she had some online classes, and she did it while going through a lot of adversity. Extremely proud of my daughter and what she has accomplished. Both my wife, my daughter, my son are so supportive of what I've done the last 40 years that I would not be as successful if it wasn't for that. This is one of our team captains. In fact, he right now is in his senior year playing at Concordia in Austin. And he's a great kid, calls me often, and we talk about mental toughness. We call about the process and just having fun while you're playing instead of putting all that extra pressure. And sometimes he just wants to hear a little encouragement, a little positivity as he's going through his college career. He played 2 years at a college in Ohio, and now he's at Concordia. He was there last year, and this will be his second year there.
Let's continue.
Yes, my wife is way more competitive than I am. The big game when we lost and played terrible. Are you practicing right now? Nope. I got to digest this game before I practice. But she's an incredible educator. She taught for 10 years, was a counselor, assistant principal. She's right now the director of testing and just does an outstanding job in her work, and is just a great supporter. We have something that we do at home during Christmas. I invite all our players from our varsity, and there'll be 15 kids here, players or managers, and they decorate our house. They put up our Christmas trees. They put up nativities. They fix the staircase. And the pride of those kids as they're taking pictures once they finish the tree and finish the little train set. And it is a great bonding time. My wife will make brownies and we'll eat and we'll have Christmas songs. And it's our basketball family. And the support she gives me and gives our team is just second to none. She's just amazing. In fact, she was so supportive that after her surgery for breast cancer, 10-hour surgery, the first thing she asked, did your team win? Not how was my surgery, but did your team win? Because we had a game that day, which I did not go to. My assistant coaches but she was more concerned whether our team might won or lost, or other than how she came out. But that's my wife, how she just is always there for me. And she's just, I would not be as successful if I didn't have her. That's for sure.
What does JOY stand for?
Yes, I shared earlier about how sometimes we seek success of the trophies and this and that. But when you see a kid just succeed, I have a kid right now, an 8th grader, that everybody told me he was not going to finish the season, that he was going to fail, that he was going to be trouble. The kid comes by my classroom every day to say hi. And he's a little 8th grader that might have been in trouble at one time, but he's just a great kid. But when you, again, focusing on that kid, and the joy part to me and my family is J is for Jesus first, O is for others second, and Y is for yourself last. It's one of the hardest things to do, but when you do that, you get a joy that only God gives, and it's amazing. And it's funny because anytime I'm upset or frustrated, I'm not living by joy. I got yourself first. I'm upset. I'm being selfish. I'm being, have envy, et cetera, et cetera. But when I have Jesus first and others second, myself, I'm happy. God's going to give me joy. So it is something that I try to instill in our players, because sometimes a lot of our jerseys or warm-ups say the acronym ENOM. It's not about me. It's about our team. It's about team success all the time. It's about my teammate. So it's very close to what joy means, but we do it in a thing that to build team chemistry and team unity. So I just feel that it's something that has really helped me care more about our players than about our wins, care more about educational needs, care more about my last year we had a player that mom had cancer. We would pray for him and mom often. So it's just something that has really made me a better person, a better coach, and a much better just teacher individual as a whole. Yeah, those were this past Christmas. I had been coaching for 40 years and had practices and stuff. Was able to take my whole family this year to, I'm coaching at a little middle school that we had nothing during the Christmas break, and it was a wonderful experience. My granddaughter was just so much fun and joy watching her with the characters. And you can see my wife and daughter with their headpieces. They just love to be at Disney and the joy that brings them. So it was just a lot of fun to be able to do that for the whole family. And we got
Thank you, Coach.
can't see it, but my daughter-in-law is also pregnant with the grandson that's coming in one more month.
Archie, I don't know when you would find any time for this, but do you have any hobbies?
My hobbies, I enjoy working in my yard. My mom was somebody that instilled a lot of yard work. She loved her garden. She planted stuff in coffee cans, would transplant it. Had just people would stop at her house just to take pictures of her front yard, of all the bougainvilleas and rose bushes, all the colors she always had. So I do a lot of gardening in my house. I take care of our yard and cut the grass and weed whack. And I got about 80, 90 pots with all kinds of different plants in them. And I love trimming and being out there and just to enjoy working in my plants. I try to read as much as I can. And my books I read is either coaching books, self-help books, Christian books that will help me become a better person, a better coach. And I love to travel with my family. I would say those are the three biggest things that I enjoy doing other than the coaching part.
As we get to the end of this episode, a few last items on the who, what, where, and how of your profession or your career. Some of the ups and downs of life, the challenges, the disappointments, the achievements, the self-fulfillment. What advice would you give to yourself if you were a young 16 or 17-year-old Archie Ramos that was still in high school and was still fumbling around and saying, what am I going to do with my life? Where am I going? What's life all about? How would you address yourself using what you know today, what would you tell yourself when you were 16 or 17 years of age?
I'm glad that I'm doing what I love. And I think that's what, since I started in an accounting major, and changing to coaching, I think that I would tell my 6 do what you love to start with. As far as what I would tell the coach part of me is a combination of what my sister would say, focus on the kid and bring joy to them. Bring Jesus, others, and then themselves, so that they become that individual that is great to play with and tough to play against. And when we talk about tough to play against, a lot of people will always bring up the mental toughness. How tough is he? And how tough is he? And a lot of times when people think of tough is, he gave me an elbow, I'm hitting him back. And we focus on toughness all the time as far as do your job. Don't deviate. I'll never forget a player comes and he fouls one of my players, and my player looks at me like he's almost laughing. This guy's trying to get in my head. And all I do is focus. The kid gets the ball to where it belongs, runs the offense. Instead of, I'm going to go show the kid, he just does his job. And it was just a great joy to me to see that, because he was doing exactly what I told him. We read books in our basketball class. And one of the main authors we read is Josh Metcalf, and he has another co-author. And what they write about is sports psychology. But I love the mental toughness that one of the books gives us definition. And I'm going to read it here. It says, true mental toughness, having a great attitude, giving your very best, treat people really well, operate with unconditional gratitude, even when you think your circumstances are not good. Regardless of circumstances, you got to treat people well. You got to do your very best. You got to have that great attitude. You got to have unconditional gratitude. And I share with my players as I read that definition with them of just different circumstances and then I share a couple of stories that are personal to me. One of them is my daughter. And to me, she's plenty tough because she is amazing. She goes through a lot of things. She has a lot of illnesses. She's had 10 or 11 surgeries of wounds that keep reopening, and they've gone on for probably 12, 13 years. And some of these surgeries are major, where she's got wound backs for months and takes a year and a half for the wound to heal completely. But while those wounds are going on, she's getting her master's. So she's living well. She's not letting that wound just knock her. She's got a paralyzed stomach and Crohn's, which affects her digestive system completely. She struggles with it constantly. Just these last 2 months, she's been in the hospital twice for 3 days on both cases, one time in intensive care. And she just a year ago or so, maybe a year and a half, a 5th grade student is running out into the street. She corrals him. He's a low runner, throws a tantrum, picks up a rock and throws it at her. She turns to protect her face, and the rock hits her on the side of her head, and now has tunnel vision and has lost a lot of hearing. She's going to have to wear a hearing aid. She suffers from migraines now because of that rock. And sometimes she's having a hard day. She struggles. But she has a great attitude. She's at work. She gets out of the hospital on Sunday. On Tuesday, she's back at work. Give nothing. She puts on musicals for her music classes. I'm going to Del Rio on a basketball trip. She'll call me on the way home. Dad, it's been a rough day. I got a terrible migraine. I'm going home. I'm taking my medicine. But I'm going to offer my pain so that you have a safe trip to Del Rio and back. Again, thinking of somebody else. Even though she's going through all that, she's turning that pain into a great apostolic action and giving of herself to me, and to offer that as a prayer. So when I think of my daughter, it's just, she lives up to the definition. She has a great attitude, gives her very best every day, no matter what's going on. She's treating her kids, her students, her dad, extremely well. Always thanking God that she has a job, that she's doing well, that she has somewhere to stay. Super positive, regardless of her circumstance. My wife is very similar. They put me to shame as far as toughness. My wife, when she was going through her cancer, was thinking of my team instead of how she was doing right after her surgery. I'll never forget one instance. My sister's here, the one that's a nun, and they're having a fundraiser, and they're having a bake sale and selling arts and crafts to make money for her convent back at the time in Brazil. And I drive my wife to San Antonio. She has chemo Friday. We get home late Friday night. Saturday morning, wakes up early, starts baking cakes. About 36 hours later, she baked 23 cakes, baked 120 cupcakes, decorated them with little pretzel antlers for deers because it was close to December. She's doing this, she's doing that on them, and totally giving of her time, of her pain, of everything that she's going through, regardless of the circumstance. She's loving her sister-in-law, helping her sister-in-law raise money for the convent. Where there's some people, I'm having treatment, don't bother me, I'm going to my room. She's, again, giving of herself. And I guess the last one that came to mind that I share with my players was a real good friend of Fernando and I, who has passed away. His name was Leo. And I'll never forget he would always tell me, you have great impact on your kids. You are in a perfect platform to influence kids. And I would tell him, you have a great impact too. Because of what he would share with me, I would share with my kids because he's so amazing. And I was telling them, I said, he's going to go get chemo at doctor's hospital. And his mentality was, God, what do you have in store for me today? He's trying to go find out how he's going to serve people, not I'm going to chemo. He talks to a couple that has a maybe 15-year-old daughter on a wheelchair. And the daughter's leaning into dad, and et cetera, taking care of him. And when they take her in, he says, if you don't mind me asking, what's going on with your daughter? So they explained that a year ago, she was perfectly healthy. Now she's paralyzed. Nobody knows what's going on. They can't figure it out. And she's getting worse all the time. And Leo, being the great person he is, he tells them, my brothers, in scripture says that when we rejoice, when something great happens, we should rejoice with one another. But it also says in the Bible that when somebody's in pain, we should feel each other's pain. My brother, I don't know you, but I feel your pain. I got 2 daughters, and I cannot imagine what you're going through. I will pray for you, your wife, and your daughter, giving of himself completely to him. Sees a couple that's going through something similar. The wife goes in for treatment. He asks the husband, how's your wife doing with her cancer? Awesome. She's in remission. And he says, but the reason she looks so sad is that she went into remission a month ago. We called her daughter. She's coming to Laredo to celebrate and dies in a car accident. He's, oh my God, I got 2 daughters. They're healthy. They're alive. Tells them the same quote. And Bible says, if somebody's in pain, we should feel each other's pain. I feel your pain. I'm praying for you and your wife. I cannot imagine what you're going through. Here's a man that's dying. He's struggling with this cancer, yet he's giving his very best to live as best as he can. He has a great attitude as he's going to go get chemo, and he's serving people. He's treating people well. Gratitude. I have 2 healthy daughters. He's thanking God for the gratitude of their daughters, of them being healthy. But yet, circumstance, he knows he's struggling with his cancer. He might not survive. A couple of weeks before he dies, I visit with him and I tell him, those stories you told me, I have shared with my players. You have had an impact on my teams because of the way you have lived, even though you never talked to them. So I just feel that I tell my players, I don't want to hear when you have a sprained ankle that you're going to pout. That's nothing. Look at these people of what they've gone through and how they have lived. So you need to think of your teammates. You need to be coaching your teammates. You got to give your very best. That kid with his graduation cap and gown, he broke his hand. Last game of the season, he missed the playoffs, and we went 3 games deep. And he was our best player. He was our captain. He was coaching up a storm. Every practice, every game, cast on, cheering his teammates, high-fiving them. Where he could have, on his own, yes, we went through a little time. I can't play. We cried together. Now we got to go take care of our team. And he did. He was living this definition. And I've had many a player that have struggled through injuries. They don't leave. They stay there for their team. And they continue to love and help them. And I just feel that if kids would live by that definition and by joy, they are going to be successful. They're going to bring lots of joy to people's hearts, and they're going to just bloom, and their families will bloom, and their teams will bloom, or where they work will just become better. I love talking with kids. I love sharing with them. There's many times that we sit and we communicate. I'll never forget, I'm giving X's and O's, and I stop and I start talking about life. Half an hour later, oh, shoot, we better go practice. I keep my 3 captains back that one year, and I says, am I overdoing this? No, coach. We need to hear stuff like that. So they're giving me their approval. They're liking that stuff. And not liking it, but they can see what's going on. And so it
is overwhelming, Archie, what you have just shared with us. I couldn't even attempt to find the words. I think our audience simply has to hear what you just said and experience it for themselves. It is over my head in terms of how I can wrap my arms around it. And I know that it's taken a lot out of you, emotional, but it's because you have approached it the way you approach life. You've given it everything. You haven't left anything on the table. Fernando?
I've known Archie since he was 15 or 16 years old. And I can tell you, we're so proud of him back then. And now I'm prouder. And I know that Freddie and Leo and all those that work with you and all your friends, and they're now as old as you are. They call us and they still share with us. And it's just beautiful stories that you all have to share with us. And you give us a lot of inspiration to continue. And I can just say, Archie, we're so grateful that you shared your story with us today.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. And so on behalf of Fernando and myself, Archie, we want to again thank you for your time, for sharing so much with us. I think our audience is going to appreciate that this podcast is more than just about Podcast Laredo. It's about podcast life and beyond. Fernando, any closing words from you?
No, Tony, that's it. We're just very grateful for Archie sharing his story with us.
You, Tony, and thank you for that, for having me.
Bless you.